Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of AutoCentral, South Africa's #1 motoring podcast. My name is George Mienie, and as usual, joined by none other than Wandile Sishi. How's it, Wandi?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's another week, so I'm just glad to be here talking about cars with you again, George. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So we are coining this episode this week the 2021 Thus Far episode, and we'll unpack the 2021 AutoTrader mid-year car industry report, focusing on how consumers are now shopping for cars. And then next, Martin Pretorius will be joining us in studio, or should I say on Zoom, to unpack the most popular VW Tiguan, as coined maybe the GTI of SUVs. And then lastly, we'll, as usual, be answering your questions on our Ask AutoTrader platform. So, Wandi, getting into it, how was your weekend?
I had a really good weekend. I didn't do much. I just got a new system, so not for music, for just my games. So, yeah, I was pretty relaxed.
You're a gamer.
The agenda. I am a gamer. Well, I wouldn't say I'm a gamer. I just enjoy playing like games and stuff.
Okay.
So yeah,
awesome stuff.
How was your weekend?
Yeah, no, it was good. No racing. So I couldn't watch Hamilton lose.
Don't worry, you can watch him win in 2 weeks' time. So, and otherwise, if don't forget, if you're watching the YouTube stream, don't forget to just comment and hit subscribe, and tell us what you guys think about the show, so we can just carry on making more content that's more focused to what you want.
Exactly. Subscribe, hit the bell icon, and comment. Tell us what you want to hear. So getting right into it, the 2021 Thus Far episode, and how and what are South African consumers shopping for when it comes to cars. So Wandi, in this year's AutoTrader car industry report, or should I say mid-year car industry report, were there any big surprises?
Yeah, there's always a surprise. One thing that we can always count on is consumers being kind of robust and changing as things change in the markets. And it's no different this year. Two things that were spotlighted for me, which I found really interesting, was the fact that used cars are getting more expensive. It's a trend that's not just in South Africa. It's globally, we're seeing the exact same thing. So it's interesting to see that that's happening. And we think the biggest cause is just the huge demand in used cars in the market. And then another thing that I found really interesting is that the EV sentiment is changing. I didn't think it would be changing so quickly, but it appears that people are being a little bit more open to the idea of EV cars. I don't know if there's anything else spotlighted for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality of the situation in South Africa is that used cars are becoming more expensive, and that's not because of price increases. It's really just an economic demand and supply issue, and that new cars are falling. People are opting for used, which means that demand for used is going up. The stock is not really growing because there's not that many new cars sold. And so the feeder into the new used car market is not great and low, and that is a recipe for price increases. I've been saying that for about a year and a half, especially since lockdown last year. So it's no real surprise to me that so used car prices are going up naturally because of demand and supply, and then the EV sentiment. I'm loving the fact that the EV sentiment is getting better from a consumer point of view. So the 2021 AutoTrader mid-year car industry report covers the first 6 months. So those are the numbers we'll be talking about in the show. First 6 months of the 2021 year, and contains all things: facts, figures, demand, supply, and and a couple of other nuggets that you may be interested in this ever-changing automotive consumer shopping market. And we look at how people are changing their behavior. And so let's look at 6 key findings in this 56-page report, because we don't have time to read the entire thing. So the first interesting thing for me is we've hit a record high when it comes to vehicle searches, 319 million searches in the first 6 months of 2021. How does that strike you?
Or what? It's like a 44% increase or something around those numbers. I mean, it's insane. And I think even though we're seeing the prices of vehicles going up, the fact that demand is high is safe. It's not saying that people can't really afford, or people won't be able to afford the car, because we are seeing that the demand is steadily climbing. So that's not really a concern now. But for the markets and the industry, it's just great to see that consumers are not letting this pandemic or lockdown slow them down from their daily lives.
Exactly. And I mean, just putting that 319 million in context, if you just kind of do the maths, it's 35,800 searches per minute on autotrader.co.za, and getting down to per second, guess what? 597, almost 600 searches per second. Sit back and think about that for a second. On autotrader.co.za, there are 600 searches per second happening. And that's a blended 600 searches per second if you just, use time. And obviously search fluctuates depending on the time of the day. But on average, it's 600 searches per second. That is mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing.
It is. For context, since we started recording this, it's been almost 200,000 searches have happened.
Yes.
Just in this time. Technically, if you had to average it out. It's astounding to see that people are still just shopping for cars, and we love it. We always gonna try and support that.
Exactly. So, most popular brand, model, and variant. What is the most popular brand searched for on AutoTrader?
Still is the BMW. It still proves to be the most searched for brand, and it accounts for around 13% of all total brand searches. So, I think there's not that many brands, just under 200 in South Africa, cars specifically. So for them to get 13% just shows you the prowess and the sort of, I guess, performance that the brand is enjoying in South Africa.
Well, I mean, if you look at one brand in BMW being one brand in 200, that effectively is 0.5%. So
Exactly.
0.5% of the number of brands in the country are getting 13% of all searches. Now, that doesn't translate into 13% of sales, because when you get to kind of inquiries and sales, a very different picture. So is it aspirational? Is it aspirational that people are searching for BMW?
I think so. I think it's also fair to consider that it's a benchmark. So people kind of, that's the bar that they want, and then they kind of compare above or below what they were thinking of originally. But we know that consumers, as soon as you go down the funnel or the search funnel, things change. Things are continuously changing. People realize, maybe I need a bigger vehicle that's going to give me a little bit more value. So it's no surprise that the most searched for brand happens to be the most sold for car, or most sold new car, which is the Toyota Hilux.
The most searched for brand is the most sold new car.
The most searched for model.
I
apologize.
Okay. I was just saying, we were talking about BMW being the most searched for brand. And, I've never heard of a BMW Hilux. It's
maybe one day.
It's like searching for a Toyota Hilux EV. But yes, the most searched for model is the Toyota Hilux. And then what is the most searched for variant? I mean, I think we can guess this one, right?
We can, ask me on any day and I'll be able to guess that one. It's still the Golf GTI. But, George, it's important to note, the Vurpa, it's still a staple of South Africa. But it's important to note that dominance that we've seen in the previous years, no, South Africans, they quick. As soon as we saw last week with the last show with the Haval Jolion, as soon as a new car comes out that's going to tick all the boxes, they'll jump ship. So we'll keep monitoring how that goes.
Yep. Okay. So is the GTI losing its footing in terms of variant search? Because if we go down to variant, the VW Golf GTI still is at the top of the list at 1.6 million searches for the 6 months. I think it's kind of like got this little fighter brand underneath it called the Polo GTI, which took about 1.4 million searches. And then comes the Mercedes. And then in fourth place is another Golf, the Golf R, which has got 1.2 million searches. So, there's not much between them in terms of number of searches, but there are 3 VWs in the top 5. So that's 60% VW. People love their VWs in South Africa. So most searched for a brand is BMW. Most searched for variant is mostly VW, mostly the GTI. But like you say, I think the race is getting closer.
It is. People are considering more, which is good.
Yes, they're considering more. And I think the internet causes that. The internet causes people to consider their options. You've got to be really on your game when it comes to your brand in today's internet world.
Yeah, competition breeds, greatness. So the more competitive it is, the cheaper it gets for consumers, and the more options and value that we get out of it. So we're always going to support that sort of competition within the market.
Competition breeds greatness. I love that, Wandie. That is like the most profound thing on the show so far. Competition breeds greatness. Competition for product, I think, breeds greatness. Competition by price doesn't breed greatness, I don't think. But let's not get into a business lesson right now. But that is a profound statement, and I love it. Absolutely love it. So talking about price, how do you determine if a used car is fairly priced? I mean, what are the things you'd look at?
So I would look at, there's a few things. It's price versus everything else on the market. So I would like to, if I'm looking at a used car, I'd like to know how other people are pricing that same specific car that I'm looking at. I'd also look at mileage. I'd see the year model. And I'd, also go back to the new car price and look at the used car price based on those three factors.
Okay. I mean, I think I think all of them are relevant, and including the last one you mentioned, which is look at the new car price. But I suppose it's very difficult to compare the new car price to the used car price, because quite often things have changed significantly in the new car. So is the price really comparable? But there's another thing that you pulled out, that we spoke about before the show, and that was this interesting statistic called average price per kilometer. Give us a rundown of what average price per kilometer looks like.
So essentially, within the methodology, we look at the average price by body type. So we look at, for instance, let's take hatchbacks. We take the buckets of hatchbacks and we look at the average prices for those hatchbacks. And then we also, to ensure that it's fair, we also look at the average year model and mileage. We then take that price and we divide it by the mileage, and then we get a price per kilometer. And that gives you kind of a good understanding of how body types are priced. So, if I'm getting a coupe versus a hatchback, how much more I'll be paying per that kilometer of the mileage.
Okay, so this is an indication of not only prices, but also low and high mileages. And it looks to me like the coupe comes in at 15 Rand 56 per kilometer when you take average price versus average mileage on AutoTrader.co.za, and is 2 times any other vehicle.
Yeah, it's fair to, that's not a surprise at all. We know that Ferraris and the Lamborghinis and very sporty high-end sportbacks or coupes or roadsters are in that category of coupes. So it's not a surprise at all. We also know that they appreciate as well. Some of them have the capacity to appreciate over time. So there's no surprise there, but it's just, very interesting to see that no matter how you splice the numbers, we always get some sort of indication of how the market's doing.
Exactly. SUVs coming in at 6 Rand 42 per kilometer, and double cabs at 5 Rand 23, sedan 3 Rand 62, hatchbacks 2 Rand 96, and the single cab at 2 Rand, just over 2 Rand, 2 Rand and 3 cents per kilometer. The average price of a single cab is 212,299 Rand, and the average mileage of the single cabs on AutoTrader is 104,000 kilometers. So I'm going to have a look at the car industry report. You can download it at reports.autotrader.co.za and do some of this maths yourself before going to buy a car. See where the best value for money is. I mean, it looks like, for me, it looks like anyway that the hatchback is still the best value for money.
Easily. Looking at your model as well, you're getting a 2017 model at around 3 Rand a kilometer. It's a steal. And that's why people just keep, picking them up. It's great value, very cheap, and fairly new.
Okay, so those are searches. What about inquiries? What are the most inquired on cars in South Africa?
Top 3 is the Toyota Hilux, which, as mentioned before, is the most
sold. Okay, so where's BMW?
It's a lot lower in the final. It comes in at 4th, the highest ranking one, which is the 3 Series.
4th and 9th, right? 3 Series and 1 Series.
Correct. So, it just goes to show you that, we're still a bucky nation. Toyota's still running the game when it comes to what people end up inquiring and, essentially buying.
What's interesting in terms of models that we're talking about on inquiries, in terms of models, the BMW 3 Series ranked 4th in terms of searches. And then in terms of actual inquiries to car sellers, the BMW ranks fourth. So it keeps its position from a search to inquiry point of view. So I would imagine, that that is probably one of the only ones that holds its position, because the 1 Series, in terms of searches, came in at 10, 9, 8, 7th, but drops down to 9th in terms of inquiries.
Yeah, but look at the Golf. I think the Golf is the biggest slap in the face, which goes from 2nd place all the way down to 6th. So yeah.
So then that tells me that Golf's also an aspirational search to certain degrees. People want them, but maybe can't afford them.
Or maybe realize that a Ranger's better for their needs. I think it's so many different things could be the factor. I know
But when you go from Drupa to diesel,
the kids don't need to go that far sometimes. Sometimes they just need to get to A and B. So,
exactly. So as you point out, Toyota Hilux and Ford Ranger top the most inquired on vehicles. We are still a bucky nation, believe it or not.
Yeah, definitely no surprise there.
But the interesting thing is that car sellers received just short of 100,000 inquiries on the Toyota Hilux in the first 6 months of 2021. So, if there's a Toyota Hilux out there, it's probably going to be the one that retains its value the most.
Yeah, two things there. We have also noted that the Hilux and the Ranger, in terms of the depreciation in the first 2 years, is so massive that it could be one of the biggest reasons why people are buying these Hiluxes and Rangers so quickly. So maybe after a while they may retain a lot of their price, but in the first 2 years, it's a quick buy. It's an easy win for anyone who's looking for a vehicle, because they do depreciate, really fast. So.
And then in the South African car industry report, we unpack some of the EV sentiment as well as inquiries on EVs in the first 6 months of 2021, because this is becoming a big deal. So what is the most inquired on electric vehicle in South Africa in the first 6 months of 2021?
So there's only 5 in South Africa, but the number 1 goes to the BMW i3. I think a large part of that has to do with the fact that it's been in the country arguably the longest if you take out the Nissan Leaf, which is not available anymore. So, it's no surprise to me, at least, that the BMW i3 is there with 66% of total inquiries for any EV in the last 6 months.
And carrying just over half of all EVs listed, which tells us something. And then in second place, the Porsche Taycan, obviously 14% of all inquiries, 11% of supply, and then the Jaguar I-Pace also just under 14% of all inquiries, but 22 or 21% of supply. So there it kind of doubles the Porsche Taycan in terms of supply. The Mini Cooper SE, 4% of all inquiries, but 10% of supply, and then obviously the Nissan Leaf is still kicking around.
Yeah, definitely still kicking around. Something that you mentioned earlier is if you take the same, I think it was average selling price per kilometer for an EV, you did a calculation there, and please, can you just tell us what the results were for the i3, just for context? Why price is such a huge important factor with EVs?
Well, let's take the i3 as an example. So we've got average price of 535,292 rand divided by 34,521 kilometers. That's 15 rand 50, which kind of sits in the coupe. For a little hatch, sits in the coupe category in terms of price per kilometer. I mean, let's not even get into the Taycan and I-Pace. I-Pace sitting at around 250 rand per kilometer, and the Taycan sitting in probably double, 500 to 750 rand per kilometer. So EV prices, there's where some of the challenge lies. So what are South Africa's attitude towards EVs before we wrap up this bit?
It's definitely changed. We've kind of spoken about how it has changed, and in the reports we do ask people what are the factors that's going to get them to buy an EV a bit quicker. Before, it was things such as charging, it was things such as range anxiety, but in the last 6 months, the thing that's topped the kind of the tables is safety, which is something that can definitely be addressed. That's more of an education thing more than a technological factor that's hindering sentiment. So it's really good to see that people are opening up a lot more to EVs, and it's just onto us now. I guess the ball's in our park to kind of educate people and put them inside the vehicles to show them that, hey, anyone can drive an EV and your life won't change that much.
So EV sentiment is changing, and I think one of the biggest factors in terms of concern in the South African automotive industry, and is unfortunately used car prices rising, and that's not because people are putting prices up. It's demand and supply, as I said at the beginning, and it's because the new car demand is down, and the new car demand is down mostly because of the economic environment and prices rising for new car. So, I think there's something we can do as an industry about new car or with new car prices, but the government has to come to the party. And we've said so all along. We need government incentives. So, on that note and talking about, GTIs and Vrupa and Buckies and all of those lovely things. I'm going to bring in Martin Pretorius, our expert journalist at AutoTrader.co.za, to give us some insights around the 2021 VW Tiguan, and it's kind of coined the GTI of SUVs. How's it, Martin?
Hello, George. Hi, Wandy. So nice to be back here.
Yes, nice to have you back on this cold. Wintry. It's gotten warmer now. Suddenly today it's gotten cold again. Wintry day. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about the VW Tiguan. Give us your kind of high-level view on this Tiguan.
Right. I've always liked the current generation of Tiguan. It arrived in 2016, and it was always, in my opinion, one of the most well-rounded products in its class. Now, the new one is like the old one, but even better.
New one's like the old one, but even better. What are the top things that make it better?
For one thing, the connectivity suite that's available. They have really gone to work on the in-car entertainment and infotainment system to the point where you can have wireless charging, you can have wireless smartphone mirroring, all sorts of nice to have gadgets like that. And then also some other points of interest, or another big point of interest, is the new climate control system, which doesn't operate with rotary knobs anymore. It's all touch slide switches, which is pretty cool.
Copying Tesla, are they?
I mean, this car has always been a fan favorite. I think before the EcoSport kind of came into play, it was what everyone wanted. Everyone wanted the small, I guess, compact SUV. Do you think it's, kind of going to be fighting the Jolion now, which is, kind of become super popular?
It's an interesting question.
Or do you think price is, no?
No, not at all. The Jolion fights in a much lower category than this. In fact, this Tiguan that I drove retails for about 250,000 Rand more than the most expensive Jolion. So, no, they fight in completely different classes. They might do the same thing on the box, but the execution is rather different.
Okay. Interesting, because we've got a very, very interesting view in the last episode. Go and have a look at the last episode about the Jolion, and now Martin says it's the VW Tiguan is a cut above that.
Well, I mean, the least expensive Tiguan starts about 100,000 more than the most expensive Jolion, but it has more power, X-Factory, and, well, it has the Volkswagen badge. And that actually counts for a lot. We were actually very fortunate to get this specific Tiguan to review. The car was supposed to be launched to the media midway through July, but then that event was cancelled. So instead of hosting a launch event, Volkswagen sent me this absolute top-of-the-line Tiguan to review. And then only after that did I actually attend the press launch briefing online, where they told me what was actually new.
Oh, that's very interesting.
You had some good context there before you actually went and heard the marketing. You actually drove the weapon.
Yes.
Drove
But
the
I have
weapon.
to say, unfortunately, this specific specification is not the one I would recommend.
Oh, was that?
No, you can only get the 2-liter TSI with all-wheel drive and with the R-line specification, which means sport suspension and bigger wheels and all sorts of nice dress-up goodies. But unfortunately, this test car also had the optional black styling pack, which adds 20-inch wheels instead of 19. And the combination of those big wheels with their shallow sidewalls, combined with the sport suspension, just made the ride quality not as comfortable as I would have preferred for a car of this type.
That's interesting. And I mean, tell me something, Martin, probably off the wall question. When it comes to increasing the size of your wheels, so 19-inch to 20-inch, how much weight does that add to the car?
Theoretically, it's not supposed to add too much. However, I think with extremely big wheels like these, you'll probably look at about 2 or 3 kilograms per wheel, for the simple reason that they have to reinforce the spokes and they have to reinforce the rim itself to make it more resistant to pothole damage.
Interesting one, because I've watched these drag videos, and the bigger wheels are just not ideal for drag racing.
No, in drag racing, they actually wind up the tires, literally. If you look at a slow motion video of a drag racing tire, you'll see that it's actually wound up, and you can't really get that kind of flex in a low profile tire like this. But anyway.
Which gives you more traction, I'm assuming.
It does, and it allows the car to catapult out of the blocks. But the Tiguan has another trick up its sleeve in that respect. It does not need extremely flexy rubber to get out of the blocks because it has all-wheel drive and a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. And it has the same engine as the Golf GTI 7.5.
So
that was my next question. Why is it the GTI of SUVs? Is it just engine?
Well, it's the engine, it's the dual-clutch transmission, it's the big wheels, it's the sporty styling bits. This is the car for someone who actually wants a GTI but needs something a lot more practical. And in that respect, this is the GTI of SUVs.
The GTI of SUVs. I mean, that's kind of like is it a term that's bantered around, or did we make it up?
I made it up on the fly.
You made it up on the fly. I'm gonna Google 2021 Tiguan GTI of SUVs. Let's see if anything comes up. Oh, it's on AutoTrader. It must be Martin. GTI of SUVs. There we go. All right. Well, I mean, this car looks amazing. I mean, what do you feel for its styling and exterior and interior? Looks very muscly.
Yes, but it's so good looking, and this facelift actually made it even better looking. The old one was slightly blockier, and this one looks a lot more sleek from the front end. And then, at the back, it's mostly the same, but the new headlights and the new grille and the new detailing makes it look a lot fresher than the 5 years that it's actually been on the market.
From the back, it's probably the same as the older Tiguan, but from the back, it looks like a little bit of a hatch.
Well, I mean, it is basically a big hatchback / station wagon.
Station wagon. There's a term that I haven't heard in a while. Station wagon. Okay, so what is this Tiguan going for?
Before options, and that's an important thing to consider, 710,000 Rand.
Before options. And if you fully load it?
Well, this car was pretty much fully loaded with everything except, I think, the surround view camera system. And it ran up to 823,000.
So you're looking at 100,000 Rand for options if you want to really fully stack it.
However, I wouldn't recommend all those options. I'd say skip the R-line model, maybe even settle for a 1.4 in that case. Ditch the black styling package.
But it looks so cool.
It looks so cool, but it does compromise the comfort. Okay. And I mean, in a family vehicle, comfort should be more important than sporty handling or excellent looks.
Okay.
Well, my opinion at least. So you can add the sunroof, you can add the multi-beam matrix LED headlights, and you can add maybe the sound system upgrade. So let's say 40,000 over the standard base spec will give you pretty much the optimum configuration for a 2-liter Tiguan.
There we go. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And if you want to read any more on this VW Tiguan, the GTI of SUVs, or any other car for that matter, if you're searching for a car, don't miss our autotrader.co.za news and reviews platform, where expert journalists like Martin Pretorius give you their expert opinion. They do this for a living, you know.
Yep.
I always have to be careful not to call them drivers, because that's not what they are. They are expert car reviewers. They sit in a car every day and they compare makes, models, variants against each other, optional extras, infotainment systems, road noise, 0 to 100. So, you know, it's quite a complicated task once you've driven 100 cars to think to yourself, well, you know, it's all starting to feel the same now, but not in their case. These guys love doing it. Go and look at autotrader.co.za news and reviews, and go and have a look at the reviews before you buy a car of this nature. So finally, Martin, your score out of 10 for the Tiguan.
For the new Tiguan as a model range, I'd give it 8.5. But for this specific configuration, I'd give it 7.
Okay. All right. So are we going for 8.5 or are we going for 7?
I think
we should go. Okay, no, you just said, yeah.
8.
8.
I can't penalize the whole Tiguan range because of this car that was poorly spec'd.
Okay, all right. So there we go. A VW Tiguan 2-liter TSI 4Motion R-Line gets an 8 out of 10 from Martin Pretorius. Well, Martin, really nice having you on the show, and we will see you next time.
Nice for being here. Thanks, George. Bye-bye, Wandile.
Ciao, ciao. Well, there we have it, Wandile. What do you think of the VW Tiguan 2-liter TSI 4Motion?
I don't know how I feel about it anymore, honestly. After that Jolion, all I can think of is Jolion. Jolion. Where did Jolion actually rank? We've got it on the list. The Jolion actually ended up ranking at 8 as well. So it's kind of interesting to see that it's still around the same area. Yeah, I know Martin says that it's different league, but this is business, and I think everyone's your competitor if they ultimately doing the same thing.
Exactly. So it'll be interesting to see as a Jolion gains volume in the country, to see how it's actually thought of by average consumers. So that gets us into everyday people sending AutoTrader motoring related questions, all things car buying and selling. So right now, Wandile and I will attempt to answer some of these burning questions from our Ask AutoTrader platform. Wandile, what's the first question?
First question comes from Zamore, who's asking, I have cleared my name, judgment removed, and I earn 15,000 Rand per month. Will I qualify, or do I need to create a new payment record on my credit record because it now shows missed payments?
Well, Zamor, or I don't know whether it's French and it should be Zamore. Seeing as your name is cleared, the best way to ensure you qualify for car finance, or any finance for that matter, is by opening a couple of accounts and paying them on time for months on end. And doing so will finance houses. Doing so it causes finance houses to look at you favorably. And, what they're looking for is that you manage your debt responsibly. They want to see that you're not going to stuff it up again. And that then will lead to a better interest rate on your vehicle finance or other finance, and you'll get more favorable financial terms. So, go and sort out your credit record. Go and pay a couple of accounts for a long period of time, month after month, on time. And banks will look at you more favorably. You can't explain your way out of this, unfortunately. It's not. You have to behave your way out of it. That's the right way to kind of look at it. I think you've got to behave your way out of it. Next question.
Understood. Next question is from M. Lewis, who stated, I'm considering buying a beach buggy of sorts. Are there any with ISOFIX points and airbags? So a deal breaker is the ISOFIX points and having airbags. So safety needs to be, a priority.
Well, M. Lewis, if safety is a priority, why take the roof off? I don't quite understand the beach buggy. I understand, it's it's a fun car, but if safety is a priority, the roof is one of the safest things to have on a car, right?
Yeah, definitely. It'll protect you.
But nonetheless, most cars come with ISOFIXes today, and the closest thing to your description is going to be the Jeep Wrangler, because you're able to remove the roof and still have some of the safety features that you would need in case of a rollover. But it'll probably break your piggy bank. The Jeep Wrangler is an imported vehicle, and it's going to go for a little bit of a pretty penny. Beach buggies are not intended to carry families and boast top-notch safety features. And so the modern Jeep Wrangler Unlimited will be the closest thing that you can buy off the showroom floor for a retail value of around 200,000 Rand with highish mileage, which would be the upper limit. I would suggest on setting your sights a little bit lower, and maybe, you should reconsider the beach buggy option. Next question, Wendy.
Next question is from Spusiso, who's asked, there's a sound when I turn the steering wheel. I recently had a huge pothole while I was on my way to work, and the rack end of the car was broken. I replaced the rack and the tie rod end to the side where the rack end was broken. He then took the car to realignment to see what's going on, but he seems to notice that there's still that sound whenever he's trying to turn the wheel.
Well, Sibasiso, we're really sorry for your misfortune, but we know potholes are a nightmare, especially in South Africa. And in order to keep your car in a good condition, you're trying to avoid them. But sometimes it's difficult to do that. And in terms of your sound, did I do that right, Wandi?
100%.
It sounds like something is seriously wrong, even if you're taking your car to wheel alignment, and without actually looking at the car and asking our expert journalists and experts within the industry and business, we'd wager a guess that is either your lower ball joint sustained damage, or the control arm itself is bent during the incident, or that the upper strut mounting is damaged. So suggest take it to the wheel alignment bay, ask permission to get underneath the car, and have a look to see if there's anything bent there. Alternatively, take it to an OEM, the dealership that sells that particular make model in the market, and they've got much more experience in that particular car, so they'll be able to tell you more than likely. And on that note, we hope you get your sorted out.
Yes, we do.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of another AutoCentral show, and we hope you've enjoyed it. And as usual, comment, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I've been George Mienie with Wandile Sishi, and we'll see you next time.